Okay. Hello and welcome everybody to a fabulous LinkedIn Live with the wonderful John. I'm pointing over there, but he might be on that side of my screen. And today we're going to be talking about the business relationship nobody really talks about, the one we have with ourselves. And I'm so excited about this because firstly, I love John's pieces. He's a good friend of mine and I've been so excited to have him on a LinkedIn Live today. But also he just always makes me think deeper. So no pressure, John, sorry. But I'm very excited about today. So let me welcome John Armitage. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, well, I mean, I can say all sorts of things. Like you, I've done lots of different things in my life. Where I'm at the moment, one way of referring to me is that I'm a craniosacral therapist. We don't need to go into that. But craniosacral therapy is a particular therapeutic modality, and I do that. But I've trained in a whole load of different things. So I've worked therapeutically with people now for about 20 years. Prior to that, I used to work in the voluntary sector, and I was a program manager. And so I worked in leadership and management and program management and contract management and that kind of thing, mainly within the criminal justice system. But yeah, for the last 20 years, I've worked therapeutically with individuals and with groups. So I also refer to myself as a wellbeing communicator because I've done a lot of work with organizations on how we talk about wellbeing, how we make sense of wellbeing, how we make sense of mental health and wellbeing, that kind of thing. I've got a private practice in Lincoln where I see one-to-one clients, but I also work with organizations in a variety of ways, working on their well-being, whether it's strategy or whether it's running kind of communication groups or whatever it is. As long as it's about well-being and it's about how we get on, how we communicate, then I'm kind of up for it, really.
I love that. And you're also the founder of Embody Mind. So yes. Is that the business that sort of encompasses all of that, or is that something specific?
It does. Yeah. And actually, it is something that replaced what I used to run was something called Natural Health. And what it was I qualified as a craniosacral therapist. And then I went, I haven't got anywhere to practice. Where do I practice? And I tried out a few different clinics, but it just didn't really work for me. And so I got my own space and I opened it to other therapists. So I had psychotherapists, I had counsellors, I had massage therapists, homeopaths, I had all sorts of different people, kinesiologists who would rent space from me under the banner of Natural Health. That kind of dissolved as we got into the pandemic because face-to-face therapeutic work, hit an all-time low. And so I let that go and I continued with some kind of bigger pieces of work that I did with a number of different universities and did that throughout the pandemic and beyond. And then actually started to reformulate as Embody Mind because it's really, my work is about emotions, bodies and minds. And what I try to do with everything that I do is really make it really practical. How can we make sense of something for us rather than in a way that would please some kind of psychological textbook? It's actually much more about something which is salient and relevant to who we are as people day to day.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I so resonate with that. It is so important the theory is interesting. Great, lovely. But how do you actually make the change that you need? Why are we actually speaking to people? Doing what you do. It's actually about helping people to have those practical tools and methodologies to go and implement the next day or whatever to make the change that they need to. And that so resonates with the kind of how the work that I do as a leadership consultant and exec coach is that the fluffy theory, lovely, interesting. We like to know the why, but actually what is the practical side of things? So tell me more. I mean, we've known each other for many years and we were in theatre together. But today, which is how we know each other. And we could go back many years and maybe we shouldn't. But today we're talking specifically about the business relationship that nobody talks about. And that is the one we have with ourselves. And I am just so fascinated to dive into that because as a business founder myself, I know that the main block I have is up here. It's my mindset. And it's not winning clients and it's not delivering the work because I know I'm good at all of that sort of stuff, but it's just up here. So when we talk about the relationship with ourselves, what do you really mean by that?
Yeah, what do I mean by that? And it's a wonderful question to explore, and there are lots of ways in which we could explore it. Firstly, if I say why I started talking about it,
Yeah.
and then get on to actually what I kind of mean by that, I think. I started talking about it because I noticed that when I was working one-to-one with someone and we were talking about things that were really important to them, we were exploring things that were really important to them, very often I'd notice that they, so for example, when I'm working with a manager or a business leader, and it's usually around something that's stuck. Something is not working out for them. And it might be that they're aware of something that's stuck within them, but it may well be that actually they're focusing externally. So there's a stuckness around different relationships they have, or about their ability to stay calm under pressure. Or it might be, certain levels of success they're just not getting to, and they're wondering what that's about. And they're recognizing they've tried all these strategies, they've read all these books, it's not getting anywhere. What can I do with that? So often those conversations turn to those relationships we have with others. And what they end up focusing on is the relationship this person that I'm working with has with themselves. So in other words, how they talk to themselves, how they, the intentions they have towards themselves, whether they, pay attention to their needs. And that's a key one. And I know that you and I have talked about that before, those challenges of actually recognizing our needs and then being able to meet those needs. So it was in those, conversations that I had with individuals, but also within groups as well. When I was working with groups of managers, they would always be talking about all those other relationships that they were really trying to work on and trying to look after. And we were having these conversations in the context of health and well-being. And there would be a way that we would quite happily go into, how we can promote well-being within our team is very much influenced by how we model it. But actually then, what's underneath that modeling? Well, it's how we treat ourselves. It's how we talk to ourselves. It's how we think of ourselves. It's the attitudes we bring to ourselves. So I just noticed that I was having so many of those conversations. And I thought, hang on, this is something we really need to talk about. And every time I do go and talk about it, so I go to a networking group or something like that, and I introduce this idea, there isn't anybody who turns around to me and goes, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. They all go, yeah, I know, actually, but how can we do it? So we get into more depth there. That's the thing.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, it's resonates and echoes with a lot of the work that I do as well. In that it starts to be an external, oh, well, I've got a problem with X, Y, and Z over there. And actually we end up talking about why is it that that's triggering you? Not the right word, but you know what I mean. Why is it sort of, in your mind, basically, and what can we personally control? So it's that sphere of influence element of actually the only thing we can control is ourselves and the way that we think, speak, and act.
And I have a thought. I have a thought that really relates to that as well. The way that it occurred to me was, you are the one constant relationship in your life.
Yes. Yes.
So actually, if there is a recognition that we are relational beings, and we know that because of the ways that we behave and the ways that we speak, we are so communicative. The information age really embodies that so much.
Yeah.
And it's also put a lot of, lots of people talk about this, it really taxing our nervous system. And terms like self-regulation are really kind of popular now. And you mentioned the word, trigger. All of this stuff about how actually we process our day-to-day experience. And that has become so much more challenging since we have had this explosion in the ways that we communicate. But we're trying to communicate because we're a relational being. We are comparing ourselves all the time. We're modeling ourselves all the time. We're learning all the time. We're exchanging ideas all the time. And that, that's the foundation of those relationships. But we also talk to ourselves. We also think about ourselves. We model things to ourselves. We behave towards ourselves. And, so if you are thinking about all these relationships that you have during your life, you alluded to our relationship. We've known each other a long time. We've had conversations about all sorts of different things, and we've known each other through all sorts of things that have happened in life. But actually, throughout all of that, you've had a relationship with you. and I've had a relationship with me, and that's never gone away, and it never will go away until we leave this mortal coil. So
Yeah.
I just keep coming back to this idea that it is the foundation of then all of our success, all of those other relationships. It's it's the resource that underpins all of the things that we want to do with life.
It's so true, and if you think about it, it's just so kind of obvious, if you see what I mean. I mean, you kind of it's the but and yet I imagine that other people would resonate with what I think. I've been the meanest to myself. Then I would never be as mean to anyone else as I've been to myself. Let's talk about self-sabotage. Let's talk about self-hatred at times. I'm not too proud to say, there's been some very dark times when I've, and we're not talking about, we don't need to dive into my trauma and therapy here, but
sure, that's a separate thing.
Yeah, that's another conversation that maybe shouldn't be live. But we are so mean to ourselves, and it's our, all of our imposter syndrome or whatever it might be. We're never good enough. So much fear, but it's not as simple as just just unconditionally love yourself. That's what we're sort of told in the more sort of maybe spiritual world, but that's very hard. So, I mean,
well, what does it mean?
That's a great question as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just love yourself. Just be nicer to yourself. I mean, it's all trying to protect us. It's the survival instinct. But
it's like saying be happy, isn't it?
Yeah. Just live the life as if you're rich and famous and everything you've wanted is. How do you do that? How do you just manifest it? I don't know. But anyway, so how do you think someone's relationship shows up with themselves when they're maybe under pressure, when they need to regulate their nervous system? Not to jump on the bandwagon of that, but how does it show up?
Here's the thing, we are creatures of habit. We are what we repeatedly do, as Will Durant said. The philosopher said we are what we repeatedly do. And indeed.
Same thoughts over and over and over and over again. If we don't track it.
Yeah, exactly. So we can notice it in our behaviour, and we can notice it in what we say. So what we say and do, and we can notice, and it's usually easier to notice how we are towards other people. And very often because we get a reaction that we probably don't want, or we get a reaction that we do want. But it is very much harder sometimes to notice how we are towards ourselves. So, but your question was about when we're under pressure. And of course, when we're under pressure, that's when we slip much more into instinct. That's when our survival mechanisms really kind of kick in.
Yeah.
And, survival mechanisms are there to be efficient. They're there to act very quickly. And so, it kind of bypasses the thinking, and you've just got something happening. Actually, I'm acting on instinct. However, we can train that. We can work with that, because that's the thing. This relationship you have with yourself is one that you'll have throughout life. Yeah. All relationships, though, are fluid. So not only, we know that we can build bridges in relationships. We know that, saying sorry or saying thank you or acknowledging some kind of value that someone's brought, acknowledging, expressing gratitude, that kind of thing. Those ways that we relate to others in ways that show we appreciate them, that we value them, that we're looking after them, really build strength within those relationships. It's exactly the same with us. Exactly the same. And so, we can draw upon practices. For many years, I've been drawn towards mindful practice. What do we mean by mindful practice? Because you could talk about John Kabat-Zinn, who's really popularized mindfulness. You could talk about Buddhist traditions where mindfulness has been talked of for so long, but you can talk about all sorts of other spiritual traditions where it might not be called mindfulness. That's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about paying attention, talking about noticing, we're talking about equanimity, we're talking about all those things that go along with mindfulness. And mindfulness is full of practices. And there are a whole range of other things that become attached to it recently. So something else I'm very much influenced by is the work of Paul Gilbert, who is an amazing guy who has promoted something called compassion-focused therapy. And within that, he's got some really easy ways to understand things that drive us. He talks about the stress circuit. So when we're under pressure, we're stimulating our stress circuit. That's the one that wants to look after us. It's full of cortisol and adrenaline. It's full of anger and that stuff that protects us, defends us, looks after us, asserts, that kind of thing. But also within our culture, we're driven by the drive circuit. And that also has dopamine in it because, oh, shiny, you know, all of that kind of stuff. What can I acquire? What can I get hold of? And these are very active circuits, and they're really essential for us operating as social beings and interacting with the world. But the circuit that really gets neglected is the soothing circuit. That's the one which is more about, you know, calming. It's more about rejuvenating. It's more about connecting. It's about safety. And the world will take care of the other two. That will stimulate those circuits as much as you like. But our practices can really reinforce how we stimulate the soothing circuit. And, you know, there is a sense of trying to find a balance between all three of those. So, you know, when we think about how we can actually have an impact on that relationship, well, you know, it's in the behavior, it's in what you say, what you do, and it's behaviors and things that you say that stimulate the soothing circuit, that stimulate our relaxation response as opposed to our stress response, just to redress the balance a little bit. You know, and that's how I found myself kind of working over the years, really developing into that.
I think that's absolutely fascinating. And I love what you're saying about the fact that we need all three. Because to go back to the human needs side of things, we need to be challenged. We need to be driven and push and grow, because otherwise we feel complacent and we feel like, what's the point? You know, we like to have a purpose. There's such a buzzword around finding your purpose at the moment. That's because we enjoy striving for something that's hard and achieving it and feeling that dopamine hit, but also that that challenge is, so it's a human need, set of human needs to understand that. But also there just feels like there's a slight sort of, there's an encouragement to drive and to challenge and to push. There's not so much encouragement in the world, maybe just an observation from my side, for soothing. I mean, I have a specific question for you based around, I run a business and I know I need to soothe. I know I need to rest. I know I need to put my laptop away when I go away for a few days. We were talking about this before we came on live. And yet there's such guilt around that, that I've had to learn to rest as a high-performing, high-achieving female, particularly independent woman, you know, all these things that I want to be that meet these identities that I want. And yet there just seems to be a lack of encouragement to rest, or I don't know. What do you think about that? You know, have you got any thoughts around why people feel guilty when they try to soothe themselves?
Yeah. Well, I'd say I'd relate it to, you know, this idea about what we say and what we do. You know, how do we learn to even speak to ourselves in the first place? You know, we're not born with language. Actually, we learn by mirroring, interacting, relating to others. You know, we learn language from the environment that we're in, and we learn within that. You know, what's embodied within that are the expectations on us as individuals, on those identities. And when we fail to meet a kind of social expectation, and something that really gets down to kind of values that are being expressed socially, that's when we get into the realms of guilt and shame and those very socially adaptive emotions, those that help to, you know, enable us to fit in with the world. And whether it is fitting in with what someone's actually saying to us, what we think they're saying to us, what they're implicitly saying to us, what we have just accumulated. So when I say think, I don't mean now, I mean, you know, all those expectations we brought from being kids. There's all of that, the weight of those expectations, there's always there. And that will trigger those emotional responses that trigger into guilt. And so again, a way of working with it, it always starts with I talk about the kind of ABCs. So I always really like simplifying things. It helps my brain. But we start with awareness. It's about noticing it.
Yeah.
I talk about noticing a lot. What do you notice?
Mm.
What do you notice in your environment? What do you notice in the conversation you're having? What do you notice about yourself? And balance is a great one to bring in. Balance around behavior and belief. So, you can notice the kinds of ways that your beliefs about yourself are expressing. So if it is, I haven't done enough, I'm not good enough, you can go, okay, well, I haven't done enough how does that balance with what's being expected of me, what I would think about someone else? Can I kind of test the validity of that, the evidence for that, all of that kind of thing? So how can I play around and reflect upon that belief or those beliefs and how they're expressed? And I can look at my behaviors. Are my behaviors in balance? So I can consider, well, if I'm, working 20 hours a day and I'm only sleeping for 4 hours and I'm not really going to the loo or getting very much to eat, is that in balance in terms of me as a whole person? What does my body need? We know that our bodies need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep a night type thing. We know we need to eat so many calories a day. We know that that needs to come from certain sources. We know that we'll get insulin, blood sugar spikes if actually we eat really sugary things and all of these kinds of things. But there are ways of looking after our body. We know that certain amounts of exercise correlate well with really long-term physical health. So there's a set of body needs. Are we noticing it? Are we practicing it?
Yeah.
And then the final one of the ABC, so you've got your awareness, you've got your sense of balance, where it's out of balance. The final one is connection. What do you need to connect with? And it might be ideas, it might be people, it might be a conversation that you need, but it's connection to the resources that help us to redress the balance.
Yeah.
And I think we all have the potential to do that. It's just working out our own way of doing it.
Can I add another letter to your ABC? It is a D.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
It does work. Can I add D for data at the end of that? And the reason I say that is because what I believe is, and what I've seen in practice and what I practice with my clients, is that often when you feel a certain emotion and you've been aware of it, you've got about, logically that there's a balance to be had, but it's still very hard to actually implement the change that you want. Now, I know logically I shouldn't feel guilty about leaving my laptop at home, and yet I still do. Okay, so there's just, I know, like, logically. So I've got the awareness. I have the balance in logic. I know that I need connection, and I've gone out to the Peak District with my friend last week, which is what I did, and connected back with her. But the D is data for me. So that is coming back to the beginning, going, you felt guilty, you knew you felt guilty, you were aware of it, and so what? So did you enjoy your holiday? Yes. Did you come back more refreshed and more able and more excited to start the business again back on the Thursday you came back? Yes. Okay, that's information to go back into the awareness loop of, so next time you feel guilty, hopefully your lovely brain remembers, but actually it was a really good thing that I spent that time away from the work and I came back stronger and more excited rather than sort of tired and a bit worn out and a bit ready for a break. So there's something about the data loop for me as well around testing.
I'm going to add a D then as well. I've got another one, which because did you notice what you did there? You had a chat with yourself.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
You got into dialogue.
Okay.
So there's another D. I tell you what we could do sometime. We could do another one of these where we just fill an alphabet full of really, really useful words, really useful concepts. But that dialogue was a great one because it sounded like what you were doing there was you were reframing. You were reframing experience. And so I think that, well, for me, I sometimes feel a little bit like, did you ever go on, I don't know what kind of schooling you had, ever go on any school trips where you went on coaches and things like that on a school trip?
Yes.
Well, the ones that I remember were absolutely, it was like a bag of cats or rats. It was just chaotic. It was just ridiculous. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
kids screaming and throwing things, and teachers
Yeah.
trying to just keep
Yeah.
order and not disturb the driver and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that a lot of the time. Why did I get into mindfulness? Why did I get into craniosacral therapy? Why do most therapists that I talk to get into their therapeutic approaches? It's usually because they're trying to sort themselves out and they find a way of doing it and they go, oh, I feel a lot better now. I'm a bit more grounded now. Okay, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could share this. And there was a way that I would feel like that school bus full of all these kids that were going on. And what I was just hearing in what you were saying there, it was almost like there was one that was quite near the front that was being really noisy and was going, no, 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 you can't stop. No, 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 you've got to just carry on. And you just sat and had a chat with them. You went, well, hang on a minute. Does this really make sense? Is this really fair? If I do that, well, and actually they went, all right, yeah, I've got your point. Fine, carry on.
Yeah. I'm still going to be around.
Well, that's the thing, you see. So you haven't gotten fully on board yet, but you've started to open a dialogue. Yeah. And the more we work on those dialogues, the stronger those changes in relationships become, and the more they take it on board. And I just noticed that, we can go further and further and further and further and further back in a bus and get to some really important ones, because there's someone who's right there at the back who's going, no, you're crap, or whatever it happens to be. Again, I speak from experience, yeah? And it's processes and practices that enable us to do that. And, it sounded like you were just doing something like that. It sounded like it was useful to you. Yeah, like it helped you reframe something about taking, time off. Yeah. You connected with a resource, which was a friend of yours. Living it, it's good.
Yeah, I love what you just said there. I'm going to share a little practice that I do when there's a really loud emotion in my mind. And I finally sat down long enough to actually listen to it, because sometimes, as all human beings do, we just ignore, and we just put a little lid on that and smush it down because I'm too busy or whatever. So I have a little mindfulness practice or meditation practice where I sit down and I open my mind up to what I call my emotion gremlins. So I now envisage all of my different emotions that I'm going through at the time, because there's never just one as well. That's the other thing. There might be one that's the loudest, but they all look super cute. So they're all really cute little gremlins who are just quite small. And I pick them up. This is so weird. Pick them up and I kind of cuddle them and I go, what are you trying to tell me? What's going on? And they go, about this. And I go, okay, I hear you. What would you like? And they go, oh. And a lot of them just want to be heard, really. They're just trying to tell me something. They're just, I don't know, afraid of X, Y, and Z, afraid if we, the guilt gremlin is going, I'm afraid if we put this down for a second, we're not going to be successful and this business is going to suddenly fall apart. And I go, well, let's have a look at that, shall we? Let's look at the evidence, and we come back and we give it evidence and it goes, oh, didn't fall apart. Still got clients. Maybe it'll be all right next time. And it's that sort of just, I don't know, something about the distancing myself from the emotion. So it's not just fully taking over. And there's something for me about them being cute that I just seem less impacted by them when they're really cute little fluffy things. And that sort of like going back and going, what are you really trying to tell me? And that is something that I work with a lot of clients on, is emotions are really, there's no good, there's no bad. They're just trying to tell us something. But if we stop listening and we push them down, your subconscious brings them back up again, but without so much context. And then we're kind of going, why are we feeling this way? I feel a bit black today. I feel, blue or whatever it is. And I don't really know why. It's because we've not had the time or the capacity to really look at them there and then and go, is this a useful one? What do I need to do about this? Anyway, that's my little gremlin emotion story.
Alex, though, there's so much in what you were just saying there. That's amazing. I mean, there are psychologists I know and NLP practitioners that I know that would listen to that and go, yes, yes, yes. And they would cite all these different theoretical frameworks that underpin it. But ultimately, you've found a way of something working for you. And I think, just riffing on one thing you were saying there, I think all of these things that we do, they have to work for us. And when we think about emotions, we often do think about emotions being positive or negative. Like, we haven't talked about negative emotions and positive emotions, but the context is everything. And ultimately, the addition I would give is that emotions help or hinder. And ultimately, that's for you to decide how your emotions help or hinder you.
Yeah.
And once we can start to explore that, we can start to do something with our emotions, because, as you say, these are messages. There's something trying to tell us something. Emotions also are prompting action from either us or someone else. So you get really sad. The Disney Pixar film, Inside Out.
Inside Out.
That's a great simple way of putting this. That someone who gets really sad, they're trying to tell people that there's a problem.
Yeah.
So actually, when the issue is responded to, when that is heard, there is at least a more likely scenario that the sadness is going to decrease, because there's something that needs to be heard there. But that may well be from others of the tribe to actually come and support. Whereas something like anger is going, get out of my space. I'm defending this. I'm protecting this. So the motion is for us to do something. And, so all of that was within what you were just talking about there. And I think there are so many ways that we can work with that. But if you found one that works for you, good on you. That sounds great. I like the little gremlins. Because what can you do with little gremlins apart from just, they're cute? It produces a completely different response from us, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's why they had to be cute and they're not gremlins from the film where they've got wet and they're a bit scary. They're just so cute. They're like little. Anyway, yeah. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but we're already past our 30 minutes.
We could, I know, yes, yeah. We always say this, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to ask one final question, because I think this is a super important one for the audience, really. For anyone listening sort of today or in the future, what is one thing that you'd like them to take away in relation to their own relationship with themselves? Is there a practice? Is there a thought process? Is there just one thing that you would like them to feel or know?
Yeah, okay. I knew you were going to ask me this. The thing I would say is that relationships are fluid. All relationships can change.
Okay.
And I believe that strongly. I kind of know that strongly from my own practice.
Yeah.
But also, there's a shed load of research that goes behind that as well. So relationships are fluid, they can change. So we have the opportunity of firstly becoming aware of the relationship we have with ourselves. We can notice, when the proverbial hits the fan next time, how do you start talking to yourself? How do you show up? Are you the perfectionist? Are you the worrier? Are you the critic? You could just notice the quality of the conversation. You can become curious. So I think the potential for us to change is all there. And that's one message. Now, how you will do that, you could follow through the ABC. You could go, okay, now I'm aware and I've had a sense of what's not in balance. What can I connect with? So do I seek support from a coach? Do I seek support from my GP? How bad is it? What is the thing? And the severity of the thing that you're noticing. Is it I just need to talk to a friend? Is it I just need to read a book? Is it I just need a bit of time out? Do I have the answer myself that actually occurs to me? Because very often I find that with my clients. So I say, what really do you think would help you right now? So often I'll go, well, I reckon this. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and suddenly there's a way that they've given themselves permission to do something that they already knew. So yeah, that's what I would say. Relationships are fluid; they can change.
Two things. So firstly, the question I'm going to ask you next is, but there's another one first. Does that mean that our relationship with ourselves is probably the most fundamental relationship you have? But I'm going to ask you that second. The first thing I'm going to say is, No, okay. I'll ask you that question first. Is
Yeah.
our relationship with ourselves? Okay. So
Okay,
that's
the answer
yes.
to that. No, the answer to that. Then I do have an
Yeah.
answer to that.
Go on.
Why is it that that metaphor has become so, or analogy, I should say, has become so popular? The one of you put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Yeah, I think it's become really popular because it speaks to a truth that we all know. You know, because if obviously parents can really relate to it, they can, or to someone who's got a friend. If I put the oxygen mask on me, I can help others. If I don't, I'm absolutely useless to everybody else because I'm out as well.
Yeah.
And so that, for me, yeah, speaks to what you just asked there. Of course it is. You know, I am the hub. That's it.
Yeah.
I am the hub for all of the things that happen in my life. So if I'm in a really good place, I'm at least more likely to enable things around me to work out more, to be more, proactive. That's the thing, just to have more agency.
Yes.
That's one of the things. If I work on myself, I can have more agency. If I have more agency, I can get more stuff done that I think needs to be done. But of course we are. We are the most important relationship that I think we'll ever have. And it will be the foundation for all the others that follow.
I completely agree. Completely agree. And I
As
think
adults, I mean, I'm not talking about children necessarily. I'm talking about,
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes and no. I do agree with you.
3-month-old,
Yeah. I mean, still though, as a 3-month-old, your relationship with yourself, you can only look after yourself really, and yes, your actions obviously look after others. But I see it so often with people who, I don't know, well, it's a silly example, but delegating and taking work off other people to help them, but they're dying. They're drowning in work, and they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. What they're doing is they're breaking themselves for the sake of others who don't necessarily need help taken away from them. In fact, it's not fully helpful either way. Anyway, moving slightly off that point. What I wanted to finally say to you then is, because there's something that I am really passionate about, is giving people permission to be authentically themselves. And it is what all of my coaching is always about, is what is that thing inside you that really lights you up, that you want to do, that you are here on this planet to do, really. And how do you give yourself permission to do that? Because I think there's just so much more space in this world to give yourself permission to do what you really need. What is it? Is it rest? Is it work really hard today because actually it's a day when you were super productive? Is it you've already got your mask on so you can help others? Or is it actually just, I need to eat properly today? And I want people to ask that question to themselves more and more. What is it that I really need today? Not what is it that, the to-do list says, or the emails coming in, and of course you've got family and people to look after and all of these different things. But I would just want people to go, what is it that I need? And it not to be selfish, not to be seen that way. What do you think about that?
What I think about that, what it reminds me of is something I often find myself talking to people about. We often find ourselves reframing the meaning of words, terms, phrases, or how we say what we say. And one word that comes up a lot is selfish. It connects to this guilt idea. Oh no, I just feel selfish when I do this. Or isn't it selfish to, for me? So very often that idea of, no, but I should be allowed to be authentically me. Oh no, but isn't that selfish? Well, okay, I think of selfish differently. Selfish is meeting your own needs at the expense of others.
Yeah.
That's what selfish is. It's not meeting your own needs, which is what it has become synonymous with. It's actually at the expense of others. So where you talk about being authentically yourself, if being authentically yourself means that you have just broken someone's foot, maybe being authentically yourself is not so good.
No.
But it's actually 99% of the time, being authentically ourselves doesn't actually affect anybody apart from us. We're the ones that benefit from it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think of that. I think in order to translate that for many people, they need to think about what it means to be authentic, what it means to be yourself, and probably start thinking differently and talking differently about some of those blocks to that authentic way of living.
Yes.
So I think it's a great place to start a journey, what you've just been talking about there.
Yeah.
It's a great kind of star to follow. That's your North Star. Okay, how can I be more authentically myself? What's in my way? What enables me? I can consider both of those. What enables me to take another step, and maybe it is I rethink some of the ways that I talk to myself.
Yeah.
So when I hear myself saying, "Oh no, that's just selfish," don't watch another episode of The Bear. Just recently, my son had told me. He said, "Dad, you need to watch this." So I've gone back to watching The Bear. But actually, what's the expense? What's the cost? Is anybody suffering because of me doing? Well, no, they're not.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm going to watch it. But if I'm going, well, yeah, I really needed to get that email out. I might, I might not watch it in the middle of the day, but it might be at the end of a long day, like it was last night. I had a long day yesterday, and I sat down and watched an episode of The Bear, and it was great. But that's the thing. So that's what you were just talking about there about being authentic really said to me. It said that we can rewrite script.
Yes.
And, start now, because everything you've ever done, get this, everything you've ever done ever in your life has led to this moment. Ta-da.
Ta-da!
And everything you will ever do goes from this moment.
Yeah.
And you might as well start living.
Yes. And therefore, I need to ask you, before we joined this live, we were talking about something that you had been given this gift of 5 minutes to talk about. Could you just very quickly, because I know we're massively over time, but I don't care. It's joyous. Just tell us a little bit about what we were talking about before we started this.
Well, I was talking about something that I was thinking, what is the most important belief I have? Mm-hmm. And the way that I summed it up was, I only have moments to live. You only have moments to live. We don't have decades. I know it makes us go, oh, but actually we don't have decades, we don't have days, we don't have hours. We've got this moment. And then we've got this moment. And then we've got this. In other words, life is lived in a series of moments. And actually, the quality of experience we have in life is not just determined by what happens to us, but it's also determined by the quality of attention we bring to that experience. And we can continually work on that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was talking about. Yeah, we live moment to moment. And it's great that we only have moments to live. So let's just live them. And actually, how do we want to show up in those moments? We can ask ourselves that. We can ask others that. We can have conversations like this, support each other in bringing more of ourselves into those moments, being more aware in those moments. And I have this weird, wacky belief that actually life is that little bit easier when we do.
Yes, I completely agree. The life, most of my worries are about what people might think about me or what might happen in the future. And I have no idea, really. And usually when I live moment by moment, I want to live that moment in the best way that I can. And so I push aside all of the stuff that I'm like, that doesn't really matter and I'm not going to care about in 3 weeks' time, or even probably tomorrow, actually, because this is about human connection. Usually where I go to, if I want to live my most joyous moment, it's about connecting with another human being on a brilliantly exciting or just silly or just joyous or sad sometimes way, but it's that human interaction, that just authentic interaction. Right, we really do have to stop.
Yeah.
But it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your moments with me and with us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's been great to chat as usual, as always. Yeah.
I'm just a joy, John. Thank you so much. And thank you. Just before you go, though, if people want to work with you or want to connect with you, whatever way, how would you like them to do that?
They can go to www.embodiemind.co.uk, or they can find me on Instagram, embodiemind.wellbeing, on TikTok. And yeah, starting to speak out on those social media channels.
Oh, right.
So yeah, people can catch me on those.
And you also have a LinkedIn page, which I love following.
I do, of course, yes. Yeah.
An amazing set of videos and things on there which make me go, I genuinely stop and I'm like, oh, it's a John post. This is going to be good.
Good, yeah.
So thank you so much. What I will do is I will put those links into the comments section of this as well, so that you can link to those. Thank you again, John. I just genuinely love you, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Right. Let me stop the stream.